I never imagined that betrayal would come from the very person I had once cradled in my arms, the boy I had sacrificed everything for. Yet, one chilly afternoon, as I sat down with a cup of tea in my quiet living room, my world shifted forever. My laptop pinged with a notification, an email from a local community marketplace. Out of curiosity, I clicked, thinking it might be an ad, but as the page loaded, my blood ran cold. There it was, my late husband's antique pocket watch, the one he had carried every day of their 45-year marriage, the one he had given me before he passed away, whispering, "Keep this safe. It's a part of me." And right beneath the photo was the seller's name, my son. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My hands trembled as I clicked through more listings under his account. My wedding ring, the silver locket that held a picture of my parents, even the hand-carved rocking chair where I had spent countless nights rocking him to sleep. Every piece of my past, every treasure tied to my memories, gone, or at least on sale to strangers who had no idea what they were buying. "Impossible," I whispered, clutching my chest. Just then, I heard footsteps in the hallway. The door creaked open, and there he was, my son, Daniel, my only child. He walked in, phone in hand, looking smug and careless. "Daniel," I said, my voice breaking, "why are my things online? Why are you selling them?" He froze, then quickly masked his expression with a smirk. "Mom, you don't need all that junk. You can't even use half of it. I'm just making space. Besides, we need money. Be grateful I'm handling it. Grateful." My voice rose, sharp and pained. "You're selling your father's watch." "My wedding ring. These aren't things, Daniel. They're memories. They're my life." He rolled his eyes, shoving his phone into his pocket. "You're overreacting. You're old, Mum. You don't understand how the world works anymore. Those things are worthless sitting here. At least this way, we get cash. You should thank me." My heart pounded in my ears. Worthless. Did he really just call my entire life worthless? "Daniel," I whispered, tears blurring my vision. "How could you do this? How could my own son betray me like this?" His voice hardened, colder than I'd ever heard before. "Because it's my house now, Mum. You live here because I let you, and if you don't like it, you can leave." I staggered back, gripping the armrest of the sofa for support. It felt like a knife twisting in my chest. My own child, the boy I had given everything to, was treating me like a burden, like I didn't matter. But what Daniel didn't know was that I wasn't as helpless as he thought. I had my own secrets, ones that would change everything, ones that would turn his smug arrogance into pure regret. And in that moment, as his words echoed through the room, I made a silent promise. He will regret underestimating me. When Daniel stormed out of the living room after our confrontation, slamming the door so hard that the walls shook, I sank into the sofa like my bones had given way. My chest hurt, not just from his cruel words, but from the memories they stirred. For the first time in years, I felt like I was back in that hospital room, clutching my husband's cold hand as the machines around him went silent. That day, I promised myself two things: to protect Daniel, no matter what, and to keep the legacy my husband left behind safe. But now, my son was ripping that promise apart. Daniel wasn't always this way. I remember the boy who used to run into my arms after school, his face smudged with dirt, but his eyes sparkling with love. He used to sit in his father's lap, fascinated by the pocket watch, asking, "Dad, can I keep it forever?" Life wasn't easy after my husband passed. I worked 2 jobs just to keep the house afloat, cleaning during the day, sewing clothes at night. Daniel was 16 then, and instead of helping, he drifted into the wrong company. There were whispers from neighbors. Trouble at school, fights, missing money from local stores. I tried to guide him back, but he always brushed me off. "Mum, you don't get it," he'd snap. "Dad's gone, and you're too old to understand anything." But no matter how much he hurt me, I kept sacrificing. I sold part of my jewelry to fund his college tuition. I skipped meals so he could eat better. I even gave up my own dream of opening a small flower shop because he wanted a car. And now, that same boy was selling the last pieces of my husband and me, my memories, without a shred of guilt. I wasn't completely alone, though. My neighbor, Mrs. Alvarez, had lived across the street for nearly 30 years. A widow like me, she became my closest confidant. She often dropped by with fresh-baked bread and warm advice. The day after the confrontation, she came knocking, holding her cane in one hand and a basket in the other. "You look pale, Aurora," she said softly, setting the basket down. "What's wrong?" I hesitated, ashamed to reveal the truth, but the tears betrayed me. "It's Daniel. He's selling everything, even Henry's watch." Mrs. Alvarez gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "No. Not Henry's watch. That boy, what has he become?" I shook my head, my voice trembling. "He thinks I'm worthless, that I can't stop him. But he doesn't know." I stopped myself. I wasn't ready to reveal my secret. "Not yet." Mrs. Alvarez leaned closer. "Aurora, you've always been stronger than you look. Don't let him walk over you. Whatever you're holding inside, maybe now is the time to use it." Her words lingered in my mind long after she left. As the days passed, I noticed more of my belongings missing. My husband's war medals, the porcelain dolls from my childhood, even the letters he wrote to me when we first fell in love. I confronted Daniel again. "Where are my things?" I demanded, standing in his doorway. He didn't even look up from his phone. "Gone, sold. Do you want me to draw you a receipt?" "You had no right." He cut me off, his tone sharp. "This is my house, Mom. You live here because I let you. Don't forget that I felt my knees weaken. Daniel, I raised you in this house. I paid the bills. He slammed his phone on the nightstand. "And now, I'm paying them. Don't act like you're the victim. You should be grateful I didn't throw you out already." His words were knives, each one cutting deeper. But beneath my hurt, a fire began to burn. He thought he held all the power. He thought I was weak. But what Daniel didn't know was that this house wasn't his at all. It was mine, and legally, he had no claim. And now, dear listeners, if you've stayed with me through this journey, I want to leave you with something. We often think strength means holding on to family at any cost, but sometimes true strength is knowing when to let go, to set boundaries, to demand respect. Because love without respect is only chains disguised as care. If you've ever been betrayed, humiliated, or left to feel helpless, remember this: you are stronger than you think. Even in the darkest betrayal, you can reclaim your dignity, your peace, and your voice. And as for Daniel, well, I don't know what the future holds, but I know this: whether he stands by me tomorrow or not, I am no longer helpless. I leaned back in my rocking chair on the porch that evening, watching the sunset paint the sky in colors Henry used to call God's brush strokes. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt like a survivor. And if my story has touched you, if it has reminded you of your own strength, then I ask you, share it. Tell me in the comments what lessons life has taught you when you felt most powerless. Because maybe, just maybe, your story will save someone else, the way mine saved me. The courthouse smelled faintly of polished wood and old paper, a strange mixture of order and secrecy. As Amelia and I walked through the hall, my hands trembled against the leather of my handbag. I had rehearsed this moment in my mind 100 times, But now that it was here, my chest tightened with equal parts fear and determination. Daniel still thought I was powerless. He still thought he could treat me like nothing, strip away my memories, and sell them piece by piece. But today, I would prove him wrong. 2 weeks earlier, I had filed the paperwork with Amelia's help, an injunction to stop Daniel from selling any more of my property. He didn't know yet. I wanted the confrontation to happen in public, in front of witnesses, so he couldn't twist my words or dismiss me as the old woman losing her mind. That confrontation came sooner than I expected. It was Saturday afternoon, and the house was unusually noisy. I came home from my meeting with Amelia to find Daniel's friends sprawled across the living room. Empty beer cans littered the table, and loud music shook the walls. "Mum, you're back early," Daniel said, his tone laced with annoyance. "I live here," I said firmly, stepping past him. My eyes fell on something that made my stomach drop. My late husband's medals spread across the table like poker chips. His friends laughed, passing them around carelessly. "Where did you get these?" I demanded. Daniel shrugged. "Relax. They're just trinkets. Nobody cares about this old stuff but you." One of his friends laughed. "Man, you said you were selling these. I'll give you $50 for the whole set." My heart stopped. $50 for Henry's service, for his sacrifice, for the pride he carried into battle and the scars he brought home. "Daniel," I shouted, my voice shaking with rage. "Put them back, now!" He sneered at me, his voice cold. "They're mine to sell. Everything in this house is mine." The room went silent. His friends shifted uncomfortably, but no one spoke. That was the breaking point. I stepped closer, my voice low and steady. "No, Daniel. Nothing here is yours. Not the medals, not the house, not even the chair you're sitting on." He blinked, confused. "What are you talking about?" I reached into my handbag and pulled out the folder Amelia had helped me prepare. I placed it on the table, my hands no longer trembling. "These are the ownership papers. This house, this land, everything. It belongs to me, legally. You have no rights to it." His friends exchanged looks, whispering. Daniel's face reddened, but he forced a laugh. "That's a lie." "You're bluffing." Amelia stepped through the doorway just then, her professional voice cutting through the tension. "It's no bluff, Daniel. I'm her attorney, and I suggest you read before you speak." The silence that followed was deafening. Daniel snatched the folder, flipping through the pages with frantic eyes. The color drained from his face as he realized the truth. You kept this from me?" he stammered. "I had to," I said quietly, "because I knew what you were becoming. I hoped you'd change. I hoped you'd remember who raised you. But instead, you tried to strip away everything your father and I built." His hands shook as he threw the papers onto the table. "So what? You're going to kick me out? Your own son?" Tears blurred my vision, but I didn't back down. "You already kicked me out, Daniel. The moment you treated me like a burden instead of your mother. The moment you sold the watch your father promised would be yours one day. The moment you mocked me to strangers as if I was nothing." His friends sat frozen, the weight of my words settling over them. One of them whispered, "Ma, you didn't say it was hers." Daniel snapped at him. "Shut up." But I pressed on. "You wanted power, Daniel. Then let me show you what power really looks like." I reached into the folder again and pulled out the one thing I had kept hidden, even from Amelia until now, Henry's final letter. I unfolded it slowly, my voice trembling but loud enough for everyone to hear. "Aurora, if Daniel ever loses his way, remember this: protect what we built. Use what I've left behind to stand strong. Never let him forget who you are." I looked Daniel in the eyes. "Your father left me not just memories, Daniel. He left me control, investments, savings, Things you never knew existed because I didn't want you growing up entitled. I wanted you to build your own life, but instead, you tried to dismantle mine. Daniel's jaw clenched. You're lying. You don't have anything. I nodded to Amelia, who opened her briefcase and laid out the bank statements. Daniel's eyes widened. Row after row of numbers stared back at him. This can't be real, he whispered. It is, I said firmly. I am not helpless. I never was. Daniel's anger exploded. He lunged forward, grabbing the papers and tearing them in half. You think this means anything? You think you can embarrass me in front of my friends? I stood tall, my voice cutting through his rage. Embarrass you? No, Daniel. You embarrassed yourself. You showed them who you really are. Greedy, dishonest, weak. His friends shuffled toward the door, murmuring excuses. One of them muttered, "We're out of here, man. This is messed up." And then, silence. Just the two of us. Daniel's chest heaved. His face was pale. But then, something flickered in his eyes. A strange, desperate calculation. You don't get it, Mom, he said, his voice low, almost pleading. I needed money. I was in debt, serious debt. You don't understand what they'll do if I don't pay them back. My heart froze. What do you mean, debt? Who do you owe? He looked away, his hands trembling. People you don't mess with. I thought if I sold your stuff, I could fix it before you noticed. The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. My anger shifted into dread. This wasn't just betrayal. It was danger. Real danger. I whispered, Daniel, what have you gotten yourself into? Daniel's secret was out, not just his greed, but his entanglement with dangerous people. The medals, the watch, the belongings, they weren't just stolen out of carelessness. They were a desperate gamble to save himself. And now, both of us were at risk. Because when you're in debt to the wrong people, it's not just money they come for. The community hall was packed tighter than I'd ever seen it. Neighbors, friends, relatives, even people who only knew me from church, all seated, whispering in low tones, waiting for the meeting to start. The news had spread quickly. Daniel's mother was filing charges against her own son. I never wanted it to come to this, but after what I discovered in part 3, Daniel's dangerous debts, his lies, his attempt to strip me of everything, I knew there was no other way. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about protecting the legacy Henry left, the home we built, and making sure no one, especially Daniel, could destroy it again. Amelia stood at the front with her usual calm confidence, her voice carrying across the murmurs. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. What you're about to hear isn't easy, but it must be told. Mrs. Aurora found her own son, Daniel, selling her belongings online, items of sentimental and financial value, items that weren't his to sell. Gasps filled the hall. A neighbor leaned over to whisper, I knew something was wrong when I saw those medals on eBay. Daniel shifted uncomfortably in his chair, his jaw tight, eyes darting across the crowd. Amelia continued, This isn't merely a family dispute. It's about deceit, financial manipulation, and attempted exploitation of a vulnerable person. I'm not vulnerable, I shouted suddenly, my voice louder than I expected. The hall went silent. All eyes on me. My hands trembled, but I stood tall. I'm not helpless. I never was. And today, I'm here to prove it. I stepped forward, my voice steady. My husband's medals, his watch, my jewelry, even the furniture that held decades of memories. Daniel listed them online as if they were junk to be discarded. He thought I wouldn't notice. He thought I couldn't stop him. But what he didn't know is that every single thing in that house legally belongs to me. And I have the proof. I held up the deed, the bank statements, The records Amelia helped me gather. Whispers spread like wildfire. She owns everything? So he lied. Imagine stealing from your own mother. Daniel jumped up, his voice desperate. You don't understand. I wasn't trying to hurt her. I needed the money. I had no choice. A man from the crowd shouted, No choice? You had the choice not to steal from your own mother. Others murmured agreement. Heads shook in disbelief. Then Amelia dropped the real bombshell. Daniel isn't just selling his mother's belongings. He's deeply in debt to dangerous people. And instead of facing his mistakes, he tried to sacrifice his mother's dignity to cover them up. The hall erupted in gasps, hands covering mouths, whispers growing louder. Dangerous people? He put his own mother at risk. This is shameful. Daniel's face flushed red. Stop it. Stop humiliating me in front of everyone. But the humiliation was already complete. His aunt stood up, tears streaming down her face. Daniel, I helped raise you. I fed you when your mother was sick. And this is what you've become, selling the last pieces of your father's honor. Even his childhood friend, Mark, who had come to support him, looked disgusted. I can't believe you did this, man. This is low, even for you. Daniel tried to defend himself, his voice breaking. I thought I could fix it before she found out. I cut him off, my voice sharp. You thought I was weak. You thought I would stay silent. But you forgot one thing, Daniel. Your father raised me to be stronger than you'll ever understand. The hall went dead quiet. Then, slowly, applause began. It started with one woman, then another, until the room filled with clapping. The sound wasn't for Daniel. It was for me. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I felt powerful. The legal part was swift. Amelia presented the evidence to the local magistrate, who had come specifically because the situation had escalated. The law is clear, the magistrate said firmly. Daniel has no claim to the property. Any items sold without his mother's consent must be returned. If not, legal restitution will follow. Daniel collapsed into his chair, pale and shaking. The magistrate continued. Furthermore, given the extent of deceit and financial exploitation, Mrs. Aurora has every right to file charges for elder abuse and theft. The hall buzzed with whispers again, words like elder abuse, charges, and prison. I looked at my son, broken and trembling, and for a moment, my heart wavered. This was my child, the boy I had once cradled in my arms. But then, I remembered the medals on the table, the watch in the pawn shop, the cruel words he had spat when I begged him to stop. I raised my chin. I won't let you destroy me, Daniel. Not anymore. As the meeting ended, people filed out slowly, some shaking my hand, others patting my shoulder. You did the right thing, one neighbor said softly. Your husband would be proud, another whispered. But not everyone left quietly. A tall, broad man lingered at the back of the hall, his eyes fixed on Daniel. When our eyes met, a chill ran down my spine. He wasn't clapping. He wasn't shaking hands. He was simply watching. Daniel noticed him too, his face drained of what little color remained. The man finally spoke, his voice low but carrying through the hall. You thought you could hide from us, Daniel. But debts don't disappear. Not even when your mommy saves you. The entire room froze. Daniel's hands trembled, his lips moving, but no sound coming out. Amelia stepped forward quickly. That's enough. If you have a legal claim, take it to court, but threatening him here will not be tolerated. The man smirked. Court won't save him. Nothing will. And with that, he walked out, leaving silence in his wake. The truth was fully exposed. The community knew everything. Daniel was humiliated, stripped of power, and legally cornered. Justice was served. At least on paper. but the shadow of his debts still loomed, darker and more dangerous than ever. And as I sat in the empty hall, my heart heavy, one question echoed in my mind. Had I truly saved Daniel? Or had I only made things worse? A full year had passed since that night in the community hall when the truth about Daniel was laid bare. Life had changed in ways I never thought possible. The house no longer felt haunted by betrayal. Sunlight poured through the kitchen window in the mornings, warming the wooden table where Henry and I once shared coffee. For a long time, even that table felt tainted, like every memory carried Daniel's lies. But now, when I sat there with a steaming cup, I felt peace returning. Daniel was gone. After the confrontation, he disappeared for months. No calls, no visits, not even a message on holidays. At first, that silence broke me. I spent nights crying into my pillow, asking Henry's portrait why our son had turned against me. But in the quiet, I also began to heal. I hadn't expected the community to rally behind me, but they did. Neighbors checked in, church friends dropped off groceries, and Amelia became more than just a lawyer. She became like a daughter. One evening, as we sat on the porch, she said softly, "You know, Aurora, sometimes family isn't only blood. Sometimes it's the people who choose to stand by you." Her words sank deep into my heart. I realized I had been clinging to Daniel out of duty, guilt, and fear of loneliness. But love cannot survive without respect, and respect was something Daniel had buried long ago. 6 months later, Daniel showed up. His clothes were torn, his eyes hollow, and he looked like he had aged 10 years. "Mom," he whispered at the door, his voice cracked with shame. I didn't slam the door. I didn't cry. I simply stepped aside and let him in. Over weak tea and stronger silences, he confessed everything. The debts, the lies, the gambling, how those men from the hall had hounded him until he had nothing left. "I thought you were helpless," he admitted, his hands trembling. "But you were stronger than me." "Stronger than I'll ever be." Tears welled in my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. Strength isn't about winning, Daniel. It's about standing for what's right, even when it hurts. He lowered his head, ashamed. "Can you forgive me?" Forgiveness. It was a heavy word. I couldn't erase what he'd done. The betrayal, the humiliation, the way he treated me like a pawn instead of a mother. It all left scars too deep to vanish. But forgiveness, I realized, wasn't about erasing the past. It was about freeing myself from carrying its poison. "I forgive you, Daniel," I said slowly, my voice firm. "But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. And it doesn't mean I can trust you again. Not yet." He nodded, tears streaming down his face. "I'll earn it back. I promise." Whether he would or not, only time could tell. But for the first time in years, I saw a spark of humility in his eyes, and that was something worth holding on to. Months turned into a year, and life continued. Daniel entered therapy, took small jobs, and though he stumbled often, he didn't vanish again. Meanwhile, I found new meaning in my own life. I started a small group at the church, Second Chances, for elderly folks who had faced betrayal, loneliness, or financial struggles. Each week, we gathered in the hall, shared stories, laughed, and sometimes cried together. I watched others find comfort in knowing they weren't alone, and in helping them, I found healing for myself. And now, dear listeners, if you've stayed with me through this journey, I want to leave you with something. We often think strength means holding on to family at any cost, but sometimes true strength is knowing when to let go, to set boundaries, to demand respect. Because love without respect is only chains disguised as care. If you've ever been betrayed, humiliated, or left to feel helpless, remember this. You are stronger than you think. Even in the darkest betrayal, you can reclaim your dignity, your peace, and your voice. And as for Daniel, well, I don't know what the future holds, but I know this. Whether he stands by me tomorrow or not, I am no longer helpless. I leaned back in my rocking chair on the porch that evening, watching the sunset paint the sky in colors Henry used to call God's brush strokes. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt like a survivor. And if my story has touched you, if it has reminded you of your own strength, then I ask you, share it. Tell me in the comments what lessons life has taught you when you felt most powerless. Because maybe, just maybe, your story will save someone else, the way mine saved me.